Okay. And there was given a. Hold on. We're gonna start chapter 11. Give me 20 seconds. If I don't get some money for a place to live soon, man, there's gonna be some hell to pay for some bunch of people. I promise you that. I promise you that when you do the math on that, adds up to something not good. Okay, we're on chapter. My Patreon link is in the description. We're on chapter 11. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So you can measure the temple of God and the altar and those that worship therein with about a reed length rod. So that's like, I don't know, some meters or kilometers or something. It's something on the scale that we would call real, as in real estate, as in royal, as in that pertaining to the zip codes, the map, some local area on the map would be something that exists in a scale that is suggested by the text here. But the court which is without the temple leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Okay, so measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So he's saying, now take the contents. So the temple of God is what contains God. Now God is the word, books, programs, and specifically their God that has a temple and an altar, which would be the God of the Jews, the Hebrews, the children of Israel. And it's so probably the book series starting with Genesis and with Malachi completing that first series of books that this book club reads. And they're saying, so just this Old Testament or Old Covenant, we measure that as it pertains to the map. The court outside the temple leave out and measure it not, for it's given unto the Gentiles. So it's this later series of books. In this book series completed by this book we're reading for this video series, and its annotations or calendarizations. So, and it's given unto the Gentiles. So it's written in a way that it's written in such a way that Greek-speaking Greco-Roman civilizations, people in Europe and the Middle East and North Africa will read, and they will get the same download that the Jews got from the previous book series, is the way it's been written. Holy city they shall tread underfoot, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. So that's like 3 years and half a year. So that's like 3.5 years. That is 42 months is 3.5 years. Douglas Adams, your Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Fuck you for being a secret Christian instead of just being straightforward and upfront with your Christianity. Look at all of these lost people because you're just so clever and so cool to act like you live in Soviet Russia when you talk about the Bible while living in the United States in the late 20th century, and you don't live there, and you stole the valor of these victims of Soviet communist oppression to act like you did, and you don't even know why you did it. You just thought it was so cool. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,200. Okay, so what is, before moving on, so what are they're going to tread underfoot 40 and 2 months the holy city, because they received this message. So maybe about as far as you could travel by foot from the cities where these texts began to circulate in the early Christian movement, that would take about 3.5 years to travel, which may be sufficient to cover the entire map of Europe, Asia, and Africa. And that these books and their contents and the emanations and consequences and results of the contents of these books being circulated and read among people across these lands would eventually have an influence on all the people living in all of these places. By the time perhaps described in this book, which we have posited for this lecture series, the theory that it is basically now and the last 100 years and maybe the next 100 years. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 days, clothed in sackcloth. So if we continue with our interpretation or theory or exegesis, as Reformed theologians might call it, a bunch of Dutch and German guys would call it, but I just call it reading and thinking about what you're reading, and reading as if it's kind of like a game, and what they have presented to you in the text is kind of like a riddle, because it seems to me that way, and that you guess along as you read what they're talking about. And that it's fun, and for some reason it's fun, and the world and nature are like that. And so continuing on with that theory, its 2 witnesses reference here would be what I just said a minute ago, are the Old and New Testaments, or these 2 book series, which are each in some way complete in themselves, and which together are in some way complete. And that they will be given power according, so the angel who gives a guy a scale that's something like the planet Earth scales, and it's geographic regions and cities and neighborhoods and means of sending people and goods and messages across these various circuitries connecting the planet, that he will give power unto these books that travel via these ways and means, they'll have power and they'll prophesy 1,203 score days. So, okay, 1,203 score days, 1,260 days divided by 365 is about 3.5. So it's 3.45205479. So he said 3.5 years, and now he's saying 3.5 years again. So 3.5 is important. What's 3.5? I don't know. It's kind of like 6, 7, like 2, 3.5s. Is kind of like 6, 7. So his two witnesses will prophesy about 3.5 years. So maybe about the time would take you walking by land and clothed in sackcloth, which as you travel, you travail. As you move across land, you're kind of poor, like one in sackcloth. You don't have as many of the benefits of the facilities of a settled area with a city and buildings and their various furnished means of support and comfort for humans as you're traveling. And it may be sufficient time, 3.5 years, to at the level of technology at the time these books were received and began to circulate through Greco-Roman civilization, to reach every city in the Afro-Eurasian supercontinent. So these are the two olive trees. Okay, so he says, furthermore, of these two witnesses, they're two olive trees, and they're the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. So he's saying that, like an olive tree, olives that produce a very light, fluffy, smooth, healthy plant fat that's anti-inflammatory, it's antioxidant. It helps to ease the work of the blood vessels around the heart and around the brain and the body's vital organs. It's literally like lotion for your organs and tissues and cells. And it have the power to reduce fat from atherosclerosis that is built up from animal fats with fatty acid chains that are more likely to become tangled up and to uh, gum up or jam up the blood vessels and to get a clog. And these can lead to all kinds of health problems and an early death. And they also olive fats and the antioxidant nutrients in olives, which may represent the entire class of plant and animal matter that has these properties for human beings, that are food and that are medicinal. That these olive tree that they're good at preventing cancer, at creating peace. They literally create peace between your body's own cells, overactive immune cells, with tiny hot knives called free radicals, very small chemical compounds that are built by the T cell or B cell, the leukocyte produced by your immune system, that disturb the immediate area around them with a very high frequency vibration that shatters the cell's membranes and organelles and that destroys cells. They use these very small hot knives called free radicals to attack and destroy infectious pathogens, viruses, and bacteria that hijack the body and can kill the human or animal, but they are also overactive and can hurt the body's own healthy cells, which adapt to fight and defend against these overactive immune cells. And when this becomes a vicious cycle, it can turn into cancer and kill the animal. But olives, among other plants and animal foods, are good for preventing this from happening. But they only work if you use them every day. They don't work if you just take them once. You have to use them every day or they don't work. And most people just keep eating the crap that they have commercial advertisements on television to tell you to eat, which some, not that any of that isn't fine to eat, but that also we're not eating enough of what we need to eat. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a cancer rate. And it's the government's fault, and it's the commercial advertisers and their sponsors' fault. And it's the fault of anybody else who's left who's supposed to fix the problem after all of these guys didn't fix it, like your pastors, your teachers, and your parents, and it's all their fault too. So if you have diabetes and cancer, if you have inflammation, if you're sick, if you're hurting, if you don't eat enough fruits and vegetables every day, 6 or 7 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, different fruits and vegetables, it's your fault too. And it's all their fault that you're not. And if you didn't find my video to get this message from me, then it's whoever's fault that you didn't find my video, even if you were asking for exactly what's in my video and looking for exactly the contents in my videos. If they weren't recommended to you by these recommendation engines that these billionaires in Southern California are responsible for attuning to the requirements and good health of their user base, then that's their fault that you didn't find it. And that because someone didn't share it with you, if you didn't share it with other people after you found these contents useful, it's your own fault. That they're dead 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before their time, and that they died in pain, and that it was completely avoidable, and that they missed out on so many opportunities and missed out on their destiny because of it. What else? If any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So the Old New Testament are like olive trees. They are sufficient for combating cancer in all of its infectious and virulent forms and destructive forms that proliferate through the entire organization, from the level of the bio tree, the biologic tree, and the cellular level, all the way to the social and economic spheres of organization, that these forms repeat themselves, and that we have living human cancers that are living memes of cancer, that act and talk like cancer, that say what cancer says and do what cancer does, and destroy themselves and other human beings. And they're your criminals, and they're your mass social movements that are destructive to the ends of civilization. And these people tag themselves what they are when you read their social media posts. and that these two book series are like anti-cancer. They're antioxidant, they're anti-cancer, they're food and they're medicine, and they proceed in a logical order, like code, like God, or like programs, like machines that can be written like books, or like trees, or like several possible futures popping into and out of existence along some consequential chain of logical gates. And that they're also two candlesticks, so they give light, they help you see. They help you see in the dark. They give light when there's not enough light. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So if you try to, the claim here is that these two book series, the Old and New Testaments, are so powerful in what they say that if what you say as you try to read them does not comport with them, that they will program you, in such a way that only that only consequences that comport with the natural and harmonic alignments of the frequencies engendered by the programming in these texts will 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 remain stable and continue in the world without being immediately hashed and destroyed as of by a fire. And that is the nature of these programs, that they almost cannot be used to do evil, that if read and reread, that they are sufficiently complete in their overview of all of the problems that any of the recipients of these texts on planet Earth may find, that it pretty much will only make people better and can't make them worse, which has been suggested elsewhere in this short book, which says that if you've already read other books before you read these, it will make you an even better reader of those other books. And in fact, the king of those who read those other books, and the administrator among those who read those other books, and better apt to use the contents of those other books in a good way, as an authority. And that in fact these books are so complete in their overview and so tight in their economy of message, of programming to relay that overview, that there is no room outside of these books to stand where you will not die. That these books are the guidelines, the rules for life, that they mark off the borders of life itself at every level, from the biologic tree up to the further levels of organization that emerge from the biologic tree, that are prior to the biologic tree metaphysically and may exist in other places through other media than biologics. For example, on the page of a book. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. So even in the books referenced here, according to my theory, which I feel is a very modest and humble theory, not too greedy, pretty obvious, maybe the first thing you would think, without getting too far into the weeds, that this book is referring to the book series that it is belongs to, and that it's about the Old Testament books and the New Testament books, and that it is saying that the powers promised to those who play the game by learning to understand what the rules are, that it is suggesting, and continually revisiting, rereading, researching, and refining their view of these rules until they're sure, or more sure as they go along, that they have most closely approximated the exact meaning of the message given as it was intended by the sender of the message. And that if you play these according to these rules and choose to make your primary and most important game that you play to keep the rules of this game before you break and break any other rule before you break any of the rules of this game, and give them these rules the first order of priority, and make that the overview game that you play, and then add into it any additional, more specific games that you would like to play in the course of your hours and days and weeks, your months and years, and the trajectory of your life. That that if you that as civilization proceeds along these lines, that some power will be given, as the power would be required to close the skies and prevent them raining, if the one who had that power so wished. The power over weather itself on our planet. Um, it seems to me that this is not so great a promise that as to be astonishing, or without further questions that could define how it may be possible and even economic for human civilization by now to unlock and wield these powers for its benefit, for the benefit of its people and the benefit of the planet. Though the warning is given that along with such power goes the power to turn the waters to blood. So as you attempt to terraform, as you attempt to control the weather, currents, and patterns and climate, you may be working on such a scale as to turn the waters to blood and destroy sea life, or to fill the waters with the blood of the life on your land or in your neighborhoods, as we have seen happen in World War I and World War II, following the mass poisoning of the drinking water with lead. So one has to be very careful and systematic and programmatic and eminently knowledgeable, probably in the first place, to acquire such power. But even after they have that power, that it can be used and destruction can result. But it can be used and benefits can result as well, as we have seen in so many ways by now. I believe it may be possible at the present level of development of modern civilization's technology to rig up some machine with a certain form of telemetry, the most advanced and finely attunable telemetry and sensors, light and electromagnetic sensors, eyes of such a high resolution and a computer processor along with them of such vast computing power that in nearly real time that the computer and its telemetry sensors may view a moving tornado or a tornado beginning to form and count every atom in the tornado, every molecule of air in the tornado, and their currents, their vectors, their speed, where they'll be next, and to calculate some kind of ray or beam or projection that could be projected or deployed into the vicinity of the tornado or the forming tornado with very smart lights, very smart lamps that also have such a fine level of resolution and are programmable by a supercomputer in real time, and smart speakers, and that a very finely key coded vibration of matter, emanation and vibration of light and air matter can be key coded to the tornado or the forming tornado and deployed so as to slow and neutralize it. And that humanity may soon find it has within its possession the tools to defeat tornadoes, and for there never to be a tornado on planet Earth again that cannot be economically defeated, and that it would may even by now or very soon cost less to develop and produce and implement and use such a rig than it would be to allow the tornadoes to continue to destroy cities and neighborhoods and farmlands, and that the insurance companies may have a very direct interest, and that their money that has been stored up for so long may in some way have something to do with fighting this problem instead of continuing to helplessly lose to it and allow the people who live in Tornado Alley to lose to it. And the same goes for the hurricane over the Atlantic Ocean that forms every year and hits the East Coast. And it happens every year, and we should be ready for it, and we should expect it. And we have not begun with the powers we have today to take seriously our ability to really fight it and prevent these things from forming over the Atlantic in the first place. And that this is the job of our Navy, the United States Navy, is to defend our nation from these attackers. And just because they're not human does not mean they don't kill and hurt and maim and steal from us. And it doesn't mean that they're not real, and it doesn't mean that we can't stop them. And they've spent all the money and they sit around and spin their wheels. And meanwhile, the population grows more furious, and we get on our phones and scream at each other that we hate each other. And we get on our phones and say, let's just be racists again. And let's just start the race wars back up again. And we get on our phones and we say the stupidest, most evil, goddamn satanic things I've ever heard so many people say all at once. And they've stirred everybody into such a state of panic and outrage and stupidity that the most foolish and stupid and antisocial, psychotic criminals among us have brought arms to bear and and shot at the leaders, and they shot at the president in Pennsylvania, and they shot one of his most popular supporters in Utah and mortally wounded him. And they tried to shoot at the Secretary of the Treasury, who has actually been a lifelong Democrat and one of the first openly gay men to serve in the United States president's cabinet, and a former financier who helped George Soros. And that our president, the United States president, duly elected as he has been in 2 electoral college contests, who is so reviled by this stupid and decadent public, was so liberal and so worldly and practical as to preside over such an administration. And we are content to fight so stupidly and to foment so much violence and crime when we have at hand the greatest capabilities human civilization has ever had. And we have the same problems that we've had for years. So we know those problems are there and we can expect them. And we have not used our capabilities to make a serious attempt to solve these problems. And we have become frustrated and turned against each other and treated people who we are supposed to regard as friends according to the long-standing conventions and traditions, the rules of society and economy and polity in the United States. And if we continue along this path, it will be easy for us to get our wish and destroy ourselves and steal from ourselves. And only those who truly hate us and want to destroy us and steal from us, only murderers would want to continue to advance along these courses towards such a devastating end, and to an end that would make us appear in the eyes of so many great clouds of witnesses such an example of people who don't know what to do, who have been given too much and who have too much and should lose what they have and start over with much less. And it would be so easy to give us that wish if we persist in this aberration, in this great error of so many of our people. And the leaders are not awake to it. The leaders are the ones who are encouraging it. The leaders are the ones who are leading the people to behave in this way. The leaders in politics and even the technically competent leaders in industry. And there have been no voices so unified and sane and clear as mine. There have been none. The closest to it is Mr. Elon Musk, who leads by example, but does not have the mastery over words and study that I have to speak for him as I have. And Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto, and a very small handful of very few others. And none of them care about teaching it to you. So I am the only one you've got, and and I challenge you, I defy you, I dare you to go into the comments and give me a counterexample to my claim and set them next to me and my messages and compare them to me before God. And none of the pastors, none of these guys, the leaders of industry, your political leaders, none of these guys And also, I would say the president, Donald Trump, has been the closest to just leading by example without probably even being able to explain to you what he's doing and why it works. But see, I have been given that power. I gave that power to myself in the courses of my study, according to the process I developed for studying, that I learned from the best, from the books that I read, from the movies that I watched, and from the songs that I listened to. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So the claim, according to my theory in these calendarizations, is that of this text here, chapter 11 of the book of Revelations, is that the New Testament and Old Testament books have the power to and will create the most advanced civilization of human beings and human networks in the history of the planet, that they will hasten and bring about its development in such an advanced state as to have control even over the weather, which seems to me to be immediately at hand, and even economic. And when they shall have finished their testimony, when they have finished their testimony, in other words, so perhaps it's saying when these results have finally been produced by the circulation of these books and their messages among the people and among the forms of organizations of human society and economy and technology, that the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So this beast from the bottomless pit is not unlike the singularity and gravitational space discussed in the calendarizations of a previous chapter. Um, not unlike the not unlike the not unlike the worst and most massive and planet and consequential in a planetary way maladaptive responses to the sudden paces of so many changes to occur all at once when civilization begins to cross this event horizon into some point of no return and into an era of incredibly rapid and overwhelming change that makes the world in many of its fundamental relations and paces so unlike the world that each generation's parents had inhabited and adapted to during the course of their lives, and so much more so than that of their grandparents. And that the threat is that these maladaptive responses will be mortal in nature and that they will kill human individuals, they will waste human lives, they will destroy family lines and finally and irrevocably end family lines after billions, so many billions of years of evolution and work and waiting and patience and suffering and pain and loss and injury and faithfulness through all of that to continue to win biologic. So it is a threat to be taken seriously, perhaps, as the message would have it. And perhaps if these book series recommended by this message are as great as the message says they are, that the solutions to those maladaptive responses to our era's pace of change are also contained in following the rules, in constantly rereading and researching, studying and considering those rules as a daily practice in life so as to implement them, that one always gets a more exact understanding of the rules precisely as they are intended to be understood by the sender of these messages, and always keep those rules and never break them, whatever they do. And that there may be our surest and safest path through, as said just immediately prior in the text. That these ways mark the path of life, and they mark beyond that path, beyond the boundaries, they mark death. And that it is not some mere guess, that it is not some mere figuration, that it is not some lyric that something like that does exist, but that these books tell you exactly where those lines are, and that the more you read and reread them, the more success you'll have in finding those lines and making your way around them and over the paths which lead to the healthy, vital, good, and beneficial and desirable courses of life on this planet. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom in Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And so the ones who die because of their maladaptive responses to the ways the world has changed and changes so quickly and so much, or that it is like a great fire, and that it burns you if you attempt to connect with it in the ways that you would connect with people in times before these changes. That the hooks in you that biologic gave you, and that the design of this planet's enduring requirements and environments, that the hooks that are in you that are designed to work on you when your boyfriend or girlfriend uses them, when your mom or dad uses them, when your friends use them, that the computer, that the phone, that all these, that all kinds of, that the modern economy, that it's great mass and variation and great velocity, that you will find yourself easily fooled, that they are there for your hooks, and you will try to hook yourself on these things, and you will find no purchase. And you, being a good human, will persist in trying to attach yourself to these things that are not for you. You will persist in your error, in your confusion. You will persist in missing what you were designed for, and continue to aim for something that you cannot attach with. And then it may be substances, and that it may be economies or societies. It may be games you play with all of the things this modern economy creates that people didn't have before, but that you will fall to them in the same way as somebody living in Iraq 4,000 years ago at smoking something funny and looking at a statue their friend made fell, and believe it's real and fool yourself that it's real and become obsessed with it and fall in love with it, and leave no room in your heart for what you were there to really love and attach to and devote your energy and your heart, your mind, your time to wake up thinking about, to go to sleep thinking about, and that in its place you will find nothing but ash and smoke and a statue your friend carved out of stone or a tree. And that it will waste your life and that you will die and get nothing for all of those wasted cycles persisting in your error, and that you will become better and better at fooling yourself that you are making progress, that you are succeeding, that your biologic will work against you because it's that good, and that your goodness will destroy you, and that the things that make you strong will steal from you and eventually make you weak and eventually kill you, turned against you by means of this great confusion, this idolatry, this missing what you were here to aim for and hitting something else and not hitting it because you can't, because it's not made for you and you weren't made for it. It just bears many of the qualities and properties to remind you of what you're here for. So you will become dissatisfied with men if you are a woman growing up in this generation, and you will become dissatisfied with women if you are a man growing up in this generation, and you will find them to be strange and unlike you, and you will find them to be like an enemy and like a stranger and not like a friend. And unlike Adam, who says in Genesis, here's someone who's like me, you will say, here's someone who is not only unlike me, they are unlike me in the exact way that they are my enemy. And then I hate them and I fear them and I'm afraid of them and I don't trust them and I can't get along with them. And it's no fun even to talk to them. And I may as well give up. And dating is so hard. And being in a relationship is so hard. And marriage is so hard. And I hate my husband and I hate my wife. And we hate our kids and we hate our life and our nice house and our nice tax bracket and our nice cars and our nice retirement accounts and our nice shows we watch at the end of the day and all the nice food we eat. None of it's enough. None of it's enough to change any of that. Because instead of going back and rereading these books and remaining apprised of the real dangers out here that get stupid animals like humans, we remained vulnerable and it got you. And it will wait. And if it doesn't kill the baby before it's born, it will kill the baby when they're a child, and it will steal their dreams, and it will steal their hopes and their plans. It will steal their even definite and resolute plans. And by the time they make their way through this what do you call it? By the time they make their way through all this modernity and all these blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to becoming teenagers or young adults, that they will be so degenerated, so defiled, so incompetent, so confused, and so unable. And they might look fine because there's enough food, the buildings are nice enough, and the people are polite and friendly enough that they could carry on this way their entire lifetime and waste it, and that the biologic signals of the world of abundance that they inhabit tell them you're doing okay, you're doing good enough, you're not really in any danger, you don't have to fight. But they know somewhere in the recesses of their conscience, they know in their dreams that they are losing their lives to something, and that they are not living their lives well, and that they're not happy, they're not satisfied, they're missing, and they're missing out, and they're not going to get there, and they're not going to get what was there for them, and they're not going to get what was theirs, and that they will live a life unfulfilled, and that their feet never hurt a day in their lives, their hands never hurt a day in their lives, they were never even hungry a day in their lives, they never had to feel pain ever. in their entire lives. And they get fooled that the game is not as that you win the game if you don't feel pain. And that is convincing enough that they go along playing that they're winning because they never feel pain, and they didn't even win. Someone else, a whole bunch of other people did for them to be able to win that game. So they're not even playing, they're just sitting there and eating and not working and not being social and going on their phones and telling people, I'm a socialist. I think we need socialism. And thinking that means the government like raising its taxes and starting more companies run by people hired by people who work for the government. And they're that unsophisticated, they're that uneducated, and some of them venture forth so loudly with their message that we need to be socialists, and how right they are and how much they don't know what the own words they're using mean. Cheats. They're cheats. They mostly are like the Pharisees who just want people to praise them for being great scholars, and they're happy with that. They don't want to be great scholars. They don't want to solve the problem that's making them unhappy, and they've given up on it. And so let's just turn everybody as gay as you possibly can, even if they're not really gay. Just get them to take the easy way out and be gay. Fly the rainbow flag in every coffee shop. Get the government and everybody to say everyone be gay, even if you're really not. It's not be nice to someone if they are gay. It's get as many of these people, as many of these kids to be gay as we possibly can. And let's turn and change their genders. And let's get some doctors who are absolute butchers, who love cutting people up, who will take any excuse to cut a person up, just like a soldier wants to kill with his gun. And they will take a pair of scissors and a set of sutures, and they will attack the primary and secondary sexual characteristics. And the government, half the people will say, do it. Yes, do it for as many people as we possibly can. In fact, accommodate in the most ridiculous ways possible anyone who does this at the expense of everyone else who has never even thought this way, or it's never even occurred to them to think this way. Millions and millions of them, a vast majority of them, 90% of them, in any way that something they're doing presents some kind of tax on the budget of anybody who wants to be gay and trans. Make all 90% of them yield to 1% of them and their friends. And put music out there that makes it impossible for boys and girls to fall in love. Put rap music out there with some of the most offensive and disgusting lyrics that are so brutally fast and hard that there's just no way, while a boy is talking to a girl and trying to get her to dance with him, that hearing those words in her ears, that she will want to go with him. There's no way he will even go up to her and begin to talk to her with those words in his ears. He will feel like a criminal. He will be demoralized, and he'll be unable to go up to girls he likes and look at them in the eye and smile and say something funny and laugh and talk to them and be their friend, or be friendly to them and enjoy talking to them, and for them to enjoy the guy talking to them, and let's fill their ears with this filth that is so directly, so flagrantly, exactly, aggravatingly counterproductive to boys and girls talking to each other in a dance hall, dancing and falling in love and being boyfriends and girlfriends and getting married. And let's give them lyrics about Earl had to die and woman had to kill her husband. Look out, ladies, you might have to kill your husband if you get married. He'll hit you and you might have to kill him. Right? And all of this. Wait till you see my and beat the and all of this crap, garbage lyrics on the radio that the government approves. And so the cancer in these cancerous individuals who choose not to be faithful, as Paul says in his letter to the Romans, that they become losers, they become confused, they commit error in the very way they live, they become ungodly, they become living human cancer in the decisions they make and what their priorities are and how they play, what they do. They become cancer, and that they teach like a virulent, fast-growing cancer. They teach others. They teach others to be the same as them, and those others who they learn that from them they don't know what they're learning wrong. They're too stupid. They're just kids. And they didn't get anything better than this from their parents. And what they probably got from their parents was a lot of disrespect so many times in their childhood that they'd be happy to be kidnapped by a guy that looks and sounds kind of cool and doesn't hit them like their parents did. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom in Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So he's saying that the nature of these of this great city of cancer that destroys human lives in the era described according to my theory by this book of Revelations will be whatever the error of Sodom and Egypt were. So, you can do your reading from the first book in the series and figure out for yourself what you think that might be. Where also our Lord was crucified, and that the people who engage. So he's creating a bipolar systematization that at one extreme pole, using the fewest words possible he can use to say what it is. It's all the words around Sodom in the book of Genesis, and it's all the words around Egypt in the book Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Or maybe just Genesis, maybe also Joshua, I don't know, maybe just Genesis and Exodus. He gives you two words here, maybe it's those two books, Genesis and Exodus. And then exactly what you see happen in Sodom and Gomorrah and around Sodom and Gomorrah in the text, and exactly what you see happen in Egypt and with the Pharaoh and immediately around it in the text. A hardened heart, someone vaping too much, probably too much vaping. They vape too many times and they vape so hard. And they don't eat any fruits or vegetables. They vape and they don't drink milk. That's how I would say it as a doctor, or from a doctor's perspective. I'm not a real doctor, but the way I would say it, I went to music school and business school. I'm not from I tried to get into Vanderbilt, but they actually said We don't have we have some scholarship money for you, but we would have more if you weren't Asian. Vanderbilt said we've got too many Asians here already. It's just not a good look. So and we didn't have any time to spend more time with each of the Asians to pick the best ones. So there's just not enough money in the budget for you to go to Vanderbilt. So I'm from Nashville, so instead of going to a world-renowned science medical center, I went to a private Christian music and business college. So I'm not a doctor, but I think about things a lot the way a doctor would, because I feel like most of those guys aren't doing their job nowadays anyways. So everybody knows who Luigi is, but nobody knows who Mario is. WTF is Mario? Because I don't bring guns to the fight. I use books. But maybe you guys just want to keep bringing more guns out instead of just using our words. And if you do, I think that it doesn't matter if you're a citizen. I think if you prove that you do, I think they should deport you to Australia and let people who aren't like that from wherever, who speak whatever language they speak in instead, and let them live here. Because this place is too nice for people who are too quick with guns, and it has too many guns in it. And if you don't let people use their words, and if you don't really use the words and you break the words, I don't know, you finish the sentence for me in the comments section. Why do I have to do all the work for you writing this damn sentences? So the opposite pole of this theory or systemization, this theory of the world, is Jesus being crucified, or some aspect of the world, theory of some world. That the opposition to that, to all of that, is whatever is. So look at Jesus, the best doctor, the nicest doctor, everything, like I said before, just Jesus being crucified and everything around that text. So it's just like the nicest doctor ever and a really cool guy, not somebody who judges you or hates you, your friend. He brings drugs to your party when you run out of drugs at your wedding party. At your wedding party. So not drugs, just Sue. Have an evil, stupid party. Carrying on like that with your phone, your computer, the news headlines you read, fanfic you and your friends wrote about the president, fanfic you and your friends wrote about government, that you're all part of something that you're really not. You're just making it up and talking to each other because you're bored and you really are stupid. You're heathen. You're idiots. You don't know what to do. You don't really know very much about the problems you're talking about, and you don't say very much about them. You just keep adding amplitude. You stupid, blunt ones. You Nazis. Instead of doing that sort of thing, instead of having evil orgies over your phones with all the other humans, instead of committing all of this adultery, that's what they're doing. They're committing adultery. These are adulterers. Even a guy that doesn't go hard at all, a guy that just looks like the least you would think of is that just the purest, most pious, just least that in any way kind of guy, a total asexual guy. Like Paul Giamatti as the cloistered completely ascetic, monk-like devotee of the books in his study, with never a prurient interest or thought toward anything in his life. Just the coldest fish you ever. I don't know why I picked Paul Giamatti. Sorry, Paul. Just, just the stiffest, squarest, coldest, most spiritually, person you could ever think of. That guy's the worst adulterer there is. He thinks he's sneaky. He thinks you can't see it zoomed out like the point of view of angels. He thinks he's sneaky. Tries to hide it from himself what he is. That madman, that fake, that fool, that willing fool, that craftful, self-deceiving fool is an adulterer. And he's going to hell, and I hope he watches these videos, and I hope he hears me. And all of you on your phones just doom scrolling and not really doing anything, just staring at everybody and then leaving rude comments, you're going to burn in hell. Unless you change, you're going to burn in hell. What you're aiming for at the moment is actually, you might not think you're that bad. You're like, oh, I'm not so bad. Like some people are school shooters. I'm just sitting here on my phone. Yes, you're just sitting there on your phone. I guess you don't understand how it works on this planet. So maybe you should actually be reading books instead of scrolling on your phone like that, committing idolatry and adultery, having an evil orgy with all the other humans over your phones, not learning anything to improve yourself, not learning anything to improve something that's valuable to people. Not at least just watching shows, watching a good movie, but scrolling like that. And the app has been programmed to keep you doing it because they think that if they do that, that they make more money. They think if they do that, they're winning. And those guys are going to be in very big trouble. If the United States government will be doing them a favor to go ahead and be the ones to take it on themselves to be the source of that trouble for them, because they'll be much nicer than whatever happens instead in such a fast-moving, severally diverse and populated and perfectly and ever more perfectly connected network. They better hope that something like the government and a group of friends knocks on their door and tells them, you better stop cutting up my people this way. You better figure it out. And I can give you some suggestions and ask you some questions that might help you figure it out, but you're breaking the law. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. So everybody's going to see that these guys that this kills you. The cancer, the adultery, the woke mind virus, the error of Sodom and Egypt, the error of Jezebel and her cult, described in the first letters written from the angel through John to the angels of the book clubs, of the 7 book clubs, that those guys, it kills you, and everyone will be able to see that. And with the internet, you'll be able to see it, and people see it, and people are not stupid, and people know that's what's happening, and people can't talk about it without telling you the truth. And that's going to keep becoming more and more true, that you will not be able to lie. And it's always been true. Not that the rule is you won't is the rule is not to lie, that the rule is you can't lie. It's not possible. You can be quiet or you can tell the truth when you speak. And that the more that all of this connects the way it does and intelligence rolls through it the way it does, that this is becoming more true every day, and you will not be able to, it will be impossible for you to lie. That when you speak, what you say will be true. That however you intend your words, that they will work the way they work. And that about what you're speaking, they will work the way they work. And that the truth will be had from your words, and that the truth will be found from your words, and that the truth will emanate from your words, and that what you say will ring true, whatever you say and however you intend to say it, and you won't be able to lie, and you won't be able to deceive people with what you say, and that no way you use the words will be able to, and that the truth will keep coming out no matter what you say, no matter how you try to lie. And that people who have had extremely high experiences in life have found that's what it was like during those moments in their life. That people who have fallen in love, that people who are in love with somebody find that that's true, and that they begin to speak poetry. That the people who have suffered or committed a crime find that that happens to them as well, and that they become in some kind of way guilty, and that what they say shines forth the truth that they are trying to cover up with what they say and how they say it, and that they are unable not to tell the truth, and that the best they could do in a court when tried and guilty for what they are charged with and tried of is not to speak at all. And that the more they speak, the more they tell you the truth. When the stakes are that the government will put them in prison, when the stakes are that the government will hang them by the neck until dead and kill them for what they've done to break the law, that still that if they speak, they will tell you the truth. And that with the more energy they try to speak to convince you of something other than the truth and to deceive you and to defraud you, that the worse it gets for them, that the more they tell you the truth, and that the more you can discern the truth from what they say, that the more you can, that someone who knows the truth can discern it from reading the transcript of their words without being in the room when the words are said by the guilty party. And that it is like that everywhere. And that when you walk past me on the sidewalk, I'll hear your foot shuffle and hit the sidewalk weird. That you guys will break each other's legs walking past each other in New York City because you're not right with Jesus. And that when you say anything about anything that matters to you, that you will continue to confess everything that's been sent in these messages about Jesus. And it will turn out that he was right. And it will turn out these books were the final authority, that they were such a perfect and complete overview of planet Earth and its inhabitants and the recipients of these messages, particularly, most of all. And dead bodies, 3.5. So 3.5. So it's like this whole chapter is a study in the numbers 3.5. Going a little further than the 3.14 you need to complete the circumference of a circle whose diameter is 1 in whatever unit of measure you use. To make a complete circuit, and to not only complete that circuit, but with 3.5 past 3.14, you have enough to vary to spend a lot more money than you need to mark the circuit and where the circuit begins and ends. And so what you do, you become, and that will keep happening faster and faster. And that the world will accelerate, and that the margin of error will become ever more dear. The magic of compound interest, and that the further out you proceed along the lines of your errors, the more far off you will find that you of the mark that you have aimed for, that you will miss. And the more this will demand perfection, the kind of perfection that may begin to seem overwhelming and daunting, like a game you cannot win, and like such a burden, and that you will be stressed and anxious your entire life. But what is promised elsewhere in the text is that it will not be like that. That the rules are simple enough and universal and common enough that in keeping this small set of simple rules that actually mark the real boundaries of the way of life and the ways of death beyond the ways of life, that it will be a pleasure to you, and that you will find it natural, and that you will find it easy, and that it will be good for you, and that you will be happy about it, that you will not be stressed and anxious, and that you will avoid stress and anxiety that you would otherwise gathered to your burden unnecessarily by ignoring these books, or ignoring whatever's like gives the same message as these books. And you might already have the message from just the way your mom and dad were like, and just the way how you're like now. And if you trace it back, it goes back to these books, or back to the same thing these books are talking about. So I'm not saying, you have to go to church or be a Christian or even read these books. Just whatever it is that these books are saying, that other books also talk about. And I like a lot of those other books too. Sometimes more than these books, to be honest, and especially movies. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry. So these guys will be dead 3 days and a half. So I don't know. It takes out half your week. It takes out half your week, and social media and evil giant orgy, and trying to attach to something that you weren't really designed by the courses of human evolution to attach to, and try and substitute for getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you like and is good to you, and that likes you and that you're good to, and being good friends, and being a good team together. That people are going to waste half their week, half their time just, chasing down signals from someone else they think might be better, that they're missing with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or with having a boyfriend or girlfriend, and not staying single until Prince Charming shows up in their stupid social media feeds. And the guys that are doing that are the same stupid person too. So that they're gross and they're undesirable, just like the person doing it. And Prince Charming never shows up. just another idiot. And they can see that that guy's an idiot enough not to want to be his girlfriend or boyfriend, but they can't see that they are. So they keep looking for that guy in those places where they never find him. And, and so you get your average millennial marriage age going up to like 29. These guys get married at 29 now. Something crazy like that. You're almost over the hill, man. 29? Holy shit. Tell that to someone in Nigeria. Like, that's old, bro. Talk to someone in Oklahoma 100 years ago. 29? God damn it. And then like 25% of them get divorced. And the poorest ones and the richest ones, like half of them get divorced. Everyone in between, like quarter of them, a third of them get divorced. And a bunch of them aren't happy. They stay married, but they're not really doing it, man. They're just, they're using that same house and staying out of each other's way, and they're missing out. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Maybe they got something better. Maybe whatever they're doing is better than having a best friend who's another human like you. So they dwell upon the earth, shall rejoice over them, make merry. Okay, so it says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. So the Old Testament and the New Testament, people have been reading it a lot and feeling, kind of guilty or something. To the point that people in these generations living today, as I read this in December 2025, and who believe they have the right not to ever feel pain or even discomfort, and that they're winning by not ever feeling pain or discomfort. That these really, really, really rich children of the victors of World War II and the Cold War, and the builders of all of the buildings and the roads and the indoor plumbing and the electric lines and the power stations and the cars and the radios and TVs and computers for us, and who took care of all the animals and kept making more than enough food for everybody, so no one would ever run out of food. All those guys and all the pain they went through to do all that, are stupid. And they're racist. Don't forget about 1964 and all that. They're racists. They like their own cousins. They're rednecks. They're racist. They're not really city people. They're not knowledgeable or worldly people. They're like cavemen. They're murderers. They're just too stupid. They're racist, and they didn't respect women. And they weren't good with women, and the women didn't like being women back then, the way they like it now. And those guys were lame, cringy, very cringy. Those guys shouldn't have had children ever. You know, right? Yuck. Almost want to kill those guys, like you can't really, and you're not really mad at enough to kill them, but almost, they start to, like, if you were really angry and just wanted to kill someone like those guys, right? Stupid them. But these generations alive now these guys they're so experienced and worldly and liberal. They're so smart. They know everything. And and they're perfect. Don't you cross them. And those guys think, well, anyway, let's just read on. And that they dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. So those guys don't even read the Bible because it makes them uncomfortable. Like reading this thing ever wasn't, kind of exciting. They used to, if they found you with this book, they would start doing stuff to you like what people did to Jesus in the book. So the Italians kept doing that. They kept doing it and kept, if they found anybody reading the book, a lot of times they just do to you what you read happened to the guy in the book. And say, we told you not to read it. So that's what it used to been like. That's what it used to be like being German. They that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another. Okay, so by now, it turns out everything the book said is right. It is the authority. All these guys telling you it's the authority. Uh, Governments telling you it's the authority. Scientists telling you it's the authority. A bunch of dumbass, dirty hippies, even smelly hippies on television, wearing like a clown suit and holding up cardboard signs that say John 3:16 at sporting events, are telling you it's the authority. All these guys want okay, just all right, but yeah, like here's an easy one for me to get right. Those guys that wrote those books are the authority. And you get all of these weirdos saying the Jews rule the world, and don't the Jews rule the world? Everyone knows the Jews rule the world, and nobody ever says, oh, are you talking about the Bible? You're telling me you know about the Bible? So you're telling me you read the Bible, you know what that about the Bible? No one ever says that to these idiots because the way they're asking the question seems so rude. And the ones that receive the question are now afraid that they've been engaged in a racist conversation and they don't want to be racist. And that's how Hitler got away with it. And that was going on before Hitler. And that's how Hitler got away with it. As they all knew, he was saying, hey, and remember about the Bible? Oh, yeah. Y'all know that the Bible is the most popular book in history, and that kings read it, and governments and business people and scientists read it, and that even children read it, and it makes them better children, and that they get along better with others, and that people in their community like them more and respect them more and think of them as good people and that they develop a good reputation from reading it. Oh, you mean the Bible? Like that isn't like we don't all, right? Like the Bible wasn't so totalizing in its dominance over human civilization, especially in Germany by the time Hitler, by 1930, you know? And he would keep saying, you know, the Jews rule the world, and nobody would say back. Literally nobody would say back. Oh, you mean the Bible? Oh, are you talking about the Bible? Yeah, I know about that. So what? Because these guys who then he got turned into Nazis, who did what the Nazis did, were afraid to be racist. And because they were afraid to read the Bible or even think about the Bible because of how much adultery they did in their minds with all the other people in their city and with all the other cool technology and the cars and the radio and the print, the paper and all the people and the clothes. Got its hooks in them. And they got greedy and they tried to get all of that in their belly instead of being humble and simple and basic and just human with all of the pretty lights and colors and sounds going on around you, with enough food that it's easy for you to get. You lucky, stupid animal. And these women don't respect these men because they didn't get all of this, and the women know it. They know it's all here because of people who are already dead. And they can't be okay with that, and also be okay with the fact that they are here and alive now, and that the men are here and alive now. And they have no way of telling which of the men are actually like the guys, at least like the guys that got all this for us, and which are just act the same, confident because they're both well fed. They both are well fed, well intoxicated, well medicated. They don't have any inflammations. They don't have any bacteria. Their breath is fresh. They're clean. They got enough sleep and enough food. And they all seem the same. And the women think they're all disgusting because they can't pick. They can't find a way to pick, which one of these guys is a winner and which one's a loser. I have news for you. They're all, until proven otherwise, these guys are all the children of the winners. That's why they're here. So they could be, winners if they probably, got their heads screwed on straight. And just like weren't like viciously betrayed, lied to, fogged, confused, and brought down by, people who are novices, heathen idiots that don't know what to do and try too hard to do something stupid that they thought of for some stupid reason. by the millions and millions, this entire planet. So this thing's been going on, and we've been reading these books and feeling kind of guilty. And these guys felt so guilty. They so guilty about and so afraid that Jesus would hate them for being human or hate them for being inhuman. They couldn't bear to get a clear view on themselves or the view they would get on themselves that they knew they would get on themselves from reading these books. They're too afraid to go to church, too afraid to read the Bible, feel like God's in the room with you while you're pooping. It'd be too much like God's in the room with me while I'm pooping. And in the just worst, such some kind of worst possible way, just so unacceptable to the such an unacceptable form of cognitive dissonance. People fear that they won't who people of some kind who get to some point in their lives somewhat kind of way getting through idolatry, through lust, idolatry, drunkenness, orgies. It's the same stuff they're saying in all the other chapters. St. Paul, Romans, everywhere. It's the same. Jezebel, cult of Jezebel, whatever. They keep telling you what it is. And a lot of people are guilty of it. A lot of people are afraid they're guilty of it. And these are modern liberal people in 1930s Germany, and they don't want to be racist either. So they get to protect themselves from something they're scared of and be total cowards and chicken out of reading a book. And they get to congratulate themselves as good people in this conspiracy of secrecy and cowardice and posing to all your friends as that you're not racist and you're a good person and you're a humanitarian, you're a humanist. To not read the Bible, and when Hitler says, "Hey, y'all know about how the Jews rule the world?" Not say, "Hey, yeah, you're talking about the Bible. You mean the Bible, obviously." So then you start going along with them. Well, yeah, they control the media. They control the banks and the media. During the bubonic plague, all of them washed their hands and didn't get sick, and all of us got sick and died. They probably poisoned the wells. And instead of ever admitting he's talking about the Bible, instead of it even flipping to you to even say, instead of it even flipping to you, clocking to you to even spit, yeah, is it the Bible? You don't even get that opportunity. You're so far gone. You don't even get the opportunity to be afraid to say it. You don't even think of it. He gets you all hypnotized, marches you off a cliff. And it's weirdly easy to do, and it happens everywhere. And they're doing it to your kids right now. And maybe they don't get them to all shoot each other in the school. Maybe they don't get them to all mass murder and commit genocide, but they're getting them to commit crimes against humanity. They're getting them to break the law. They're making them sick and hurting them, and they're using your kids, and you're not, and your family's not, and you're losing them. while they shout that they're the ones that are that beat Hitler, and that we need them to stop Hitler. We do. Yes, we do need you to stop Hitler, libs. That's exactly what you're right. We do need. See what I'm saying? You won't be able to even lie anymore. However you try to use the words, you'll say the truth as time goes on, and that'll become more true as time goes on. Let that sink in, baby. It's going to be impossible to lie. There's too much truth around you now. Love is all around. No need to fake it. Now God's going to use you. It says in this book that at this time that humanity will drink the full cup of God's wrath. And you might not like it, but you might like it. But it's going to happen. God's going to use you. That's what I think this book is saying. Could be wrong. That's just what it seems to me like they're saying in this book. So, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt the earth, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. So the Spirit of God enters the ones who fall into these maladaptive responses to the specific changes and the paces of all these changes, and they're mixed together in this era of rapid advancement of civilization. And they die in 3.5 days, and then the other 3.5 days, then the spirit of life from God enters into them, and they stand on their feet, and people fear them who see them. So that'd be like how terrifying these heathen idiots are, who speak in a way to be terrifying, who speak to intimidate and terrorize the receivers of their message, and who say that we need their help to stop Hitler. And that's certainly true. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. So these guys upload their thoughts, their ideas, their messages to the computer network, which is very much like a cloud. Very fine particulate mist arrayed like a cloud, and it moves, it's dynamic and changes like a cloud, and it's produced from a rock like the clouds, and it's produced from electricity like the clouds, and it has the power to lead people like the cloud led the children of Israel when they were wandering in the desert after their escape from captivity in Egypt. And now these unfortunate ones of the generations and era described in this book, according to my theory, feel some great call beckoning them, a call as from heaven. So as for what it like the stars are like, how you could see the stars wherever you are on the planet, any one of the planet's inhabitants see the same stars and see them in their same patterns and see their same motions and can predict them and converse with each other about the stars and have the same conversation and be talking about the same thing they're both seeing. It's how far away the stars are, and the stars mark our years. They mark our decades and our centuries. The stars mark our millennia. So something on these scales, something like that to as it matters to the receivers of this message and to the ones concerned in this message. Beckons them, this biological forces beckon them, that the same forces, the same little machines in the human nature that moved them to success and health and life so long ago as even the stars would track. Maybe 10,000 years ago, maybe 100,000 years ago. We're talking about the stars now. Maybe 1,000,000 years ago. That these same forces move them to their destruction in the era of the internet and of late stage space age industrial production lines and their many outputs. And the vast array of their results in our cities, in our neighborhoods, in our buildings, in our economies and societies, in our families. And that these forces beckon them to use their phones to send you a message, to send someone a message, maybe to try to send all of that a message. And for all of that to be who they're sending the message to, and for the message to be for, these guys are crazy. They're perverts. These guys are theologians, and they're only half cranked, and they're so far less than half baked, and the result they get is so laughably novice, so laughably a total beginner, a noob's results, that they continue to try doing the same thing, but they don't actually advance along its lines. That they are crying infants on their phones with what they continue, this just torrent, this just absolute toxic, polluted sea of this crap they are flowing forth on using their smartphones, onto each other's phones, and onto everyone's phones. Is them saying, I want to write something that addresses all that. And then they never write anything that does. They just keep saying, I want to write something that addresses all of that is marked by the heavens. And they never write it. And they get angrier and angrier, many of them, as they continue in this maladaptive response. In the same hour, there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. So it's like an earthquake that kills 10% of your city. you lose 10% of your people to this, as what they're guessing in this book 2,000 years ago. And I don't know if you want them to win or if you want us to win and for them to be wrong. But, a bunch of guys around the time of Hitler in Germany, I guess, I don't know, wanted them to be wrong so much that they just lost even more than 10% of the people as fast as they could. And so I guess these guys missed in Germany in the 1930s. I guess it was 50%, not 10%, that they lost of humans, other people just like them that feel the same way about it they would feel if it happened to them. And all the unseen families of these victims, all the people they never met before who have a direct stake in it, and all of their angels who are a great cloud of witnesses and have some untold amount of money and pull around this planet. And we're content to hasten and cause the loss of so much humanity. But I don't know, you could maybe play the other way if you were actually talking about what you were talking about and not afraid and not demoralized and not happy to make an evil little deal with the crowds that you'll all flatter each other that you're all good liberals and humanists just by saying it to each other. Until that becomes your rule never to violate. And if you're ever afraid you might violate it, if anyone even mentions race, you start becoming excited and nervous and anxious and afraid. And if it is in your power to hit that person, you hit them. And if it is in your power to use the government of your organization that did not choose to play this game with you or follow those rules, you will use it against them. And you will wield and use your office that pays you to work for them to hurt somebody else in this way. And you will use your government to hurt others in this way. And they will not be allowed to talk about race at all, even though it's something that's real. Until somebody who talks about it and says, let's pick one of them and just kill them, starts talking about it. And everybody gets so tired of how stupid your game is, they would rather they joke and act out the joke that they would rather play. At least it's better to be Hitler than a communist. And it probably, for something as bad as Hitler, it probably is. And communism was probably that dangerous of a real threat. So if you want Hitler, maybe there's a way. That's one way you can help create him. Is don't read the Bible. Don't go to church. Don't let anybody be an animal, and don't let anybody be a race. You're all categories on a government form. You're white, black, even though there's no such thing as a white man or a black man. I've never seen that in my life. These newspapers are unrepentant exaggerators. Okay, in the same hour was there a great earthquake, and a 10th part of the city fell, and slain and all of it. And, and this maybe gets a 10th of your city, you just lose them. You just lose these guys. They're not with us, man. And they know they're not. They're not with themselves. And they don't die happy. They are in hell before they die, and they know they are, and they just make themselves comfortable, and at least they get to die in a nice warm bed in a clean room with their last rich meal still digesting in their stomachs when they die. And that's something, that's something. It's it's not nothing. Like that's pretty good. But okay, so the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. All right, so buckle up. Get ready for the third woe and the seventh angel sounding. We've already been through everything, man. This has got to be something pretty bad. And the seventh angel sounded, and there was great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Okay, that sounds probably, at least from the perspective of these guys write this book, like a good thing, right? Like that's probably pretty good. And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces and worshiped God. So that's like the race of humanity which inhabits the earth, or all of the planets, animal inhabitants and plant inhabitants, which live on a 24-hour daylight cycle, day-night cycle, or the sun and moon, the entire organization consisting of the sun and moon and the earth and its inhabitants on planet Earth. The entire farm, saying, we give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee great power and hast reigned. So seems pretty good still so far. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. So there are a lot of problems. Nations of people faced those problems and didn't like them. They're even angry about them. Everyone wants the problem to stop. And now these two messages, these two witnesses, these two containers, the Old New Testament, have finally proliferated in their action and effect upon the whole of the planet by the time that predicted in this book. It turns out that these texts are authoritative, that they are the leaders, that they are the winning machines, that they took over and made everything a way that is healthy and good for life and that everybody's happy about. Pretty much. And the saints, so people who something unfair happened to, and they got stolen from, they got hurt, they got tortured, they got abused, and justice happened to them, that the result from all the contents of these books they approve of, and that after going through what they went through, that there's no injustice to be done to anybody. Although some pain may exist, some discomfort, something, that you may still remain a biologic tree, and its responses to stimuli and its um, infinity, its limits and finitudes and whatever, its partialities, that there's justice now. That now there's great power, understanding, and mastery over the world, and that there's great abundance, and that there's great healing, that there's no more fighting, that there's no more inflammation. They put out the fires. Everything burns colder and cleaner and smoother and easier and nicer for everyone. And things are going better. And there's not injustice along with that, but there's justice. And such that all those who ever been wronged in the courses of things happening wrong and and being overlooked, misused, abandoned, run over by something bigger than them that was stupid and just didn't respect them. That all of these would approve of the way the world is organized because of how this book is transforms people and organizations who read it. Thusly, that's what it's saying, gives rewards to the servants of the prophets. And that it turns out they were right about everything they talked about. They talked about everything you pretty much can talk about, and that what they made based off of it in talking about it the way they do through these books, uh, works for people, works for everyone. And and them that fear God's name, small and great. So at every level of the organization that is as limitable by these orders of priority, and should us or whatever. So it's not that people can't die, they just don't, or whatever, and they're okay with that. And the temple of code, or God, the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail. So after all these guys get together and they gather around whoever sent the message, that's Genesis through this book of Revelations, and tell the sender of that message, thank you. And you're the absolutely most, not only the highest and most authority over planet Earth and all its inhabitants, but the most authority over them that you could be, that anyone could be, that it's possible to be, and that everyone's happy with it, and everyone thinks that the response from something that's saying it's the one that it's that thing that sent the message, God or whatever, says in answer, like it's the one who they're saying thank you to and all that, and you're right, and you are the boss, and you fixed everything, and something answers back out of the sky, or out of something like all of these books, and out of the sky, by the same method or same way, in the same way, answers as if it's that, and says, and answers in a funny way, like with voices and lightnings and thunderings, like it's your friend, like it's a crowd of other humans or something, like it's people like you, but like they're very great, like a great multitude of people, as if as a like an earthquake, as of concerning an earthquake, or that an earthquake concerns. So it feels like an entire city of people who are all like that are saying that to you, speaking as if they are the one that you have addressed the message to, saying thanks, and you're the guy who wrote the Bible, and all the stuff you wrote is you're the boss, and you see everything, and you're the most perfect possible authority over planet Earth and its inhabitants, and we all thank you. That he says back, that he said that his answer back is he flashing you an image of the temple, with the ark of it, with the ark of his testament. So his answer back might be like the 10 Commandments, which he carried in 2 tablets in the ark. So after everyone says that to him, he says back, all right, hey, don't forget the 10 Commandments. And great hail. So they're just like, and also show you how important what we're saying is, to emphasize how important what we're saying is also. And here's falling rocks from the sky made out of water that could like destroy you, destroy your building, destroy your crops. So like maybe we could, or maybe not keeping these 10 commandments could, or maybe not, maybe being the one to, step out of these paths that are guided by these lines that are given to any to understand who spent sufficient time reading and rereading and studying them and doing further research in this book series. That it could be, you die, your animals die, an animal you love dies, your house is destroyed, your crops are destroyed. Which is so real and so important that it bears them emphasizing again that we're not all just dreaming here. We're not all just talking about something that doesn't matter. That this isn't just theory, that it's practical design for the real world where hail falls. And that's the main domain or arena, theater, network where you keep all of this. The place wherever it hails. And that the one sending this message in reply, as if to be the one who the message of thanks is sent, has the power to take something small and light, and that there are so many numbers of like water molecules in the water vapor of the air, and to put them together into something solid and heavy like hail. Okay, well, that's the end of chapter 11. And so we'll take it up again the next video, chapter 12. I think that's the last chapter in this book. It's a pretty short book, but it does seem to pack in an enormous amount of possible lines of inquiry or further play in such an economy of words.